I guess I'll know the stream is live. All right. I guess I'm live. All right. Hey, here we are from a remote place again. They haven't done this in a while. Appreciate you guys joining us today here on the many StreamYard platforms that we have, whether it be Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, or X. Like, subscribe, go out there. Hey, it's been a long day for me, but I'm going to get through the show today. I'm spending some time with my granddaughter. She's 6 months old right now. She's upstairs napping, which is a good thing. And if I have to go attend to her, then I won't be live anymore. I will be out of here. But don't worry, um, clawing our way back. That's a good theme for the show today because we're in the process of always clawing our way back. That's been the feeling. That's what we talked about on Tuesday with JB Pritzker and his call to organize in the streets and for civil unrest and for civil disobedience against the current president. But clawing our way back is really more about where we're at today and where we've been. You know, what Trump inherited coming into the White House, we've got to really kind of walk this thing back before 2020 because we know that they didn't legitimately win the White House in 2020. It was a stolen election. We're going to find out more and more about that as Trump's administration and cabinet continues to dig in deep and get to the bottom of some of this craziness that they've created. But but they've layered it upon layer upon layer. Everything was planned. When they talked about the COVID and the pandemic, because it was planned. It was planned in order to implode the economy. So everything, right down to the open borders, to the welfare programs that were given to all these illegal immigrants, everything has been planned. And now you're peeling back the onion. You're uh, reverse engineering what they did. And yet, what do we hear from the crazies on the radical left? Well, they think that it's all Trump's fault that he wasn't able to turn everything around that the Democrats have done over decades and decades of orchestrating their great reset. And as I said a couple weeks ago, they weren't ready for the Trump reset. And that's what they're getting. In fact, they're getting howitzers, double barrels. Well, guess what? Another surprise for today, and I wasn't able to be in studio to enjoy this, but we have the man, the myth, the legend back with us after his time away preparing to become a licensed real estate broker in the state of Illinois. There he is, Ryan Mack. Tell us about your experience, Ryan, with the real estate class.
It was definitely an experience, like kind of a condensed version. Working full time and still trying to do class in the evenings. Um, I learned a lot, more than I probably ever thought I would in real estate land.
Yeah.
So that's just a pre-licensed course. I still got to sit for the exam,
Oh, yeah.
which I can schedule. So I can schedule anytime of my own when I'm ready. So
When are you going to do that?
hopefully sooner than later.
I was going
I'm
to say,
gonna,
do it sooner
yeah,
than later.
yep. I'm gonna study up and refresh my notes and be good to go. So yeah, excited.
Well, I just got a text message from my daughter. I'd asked her a question, and she's in the midst of training, a nursing certification training, and she just answered my question about getting my granddaughter to sleep, whether you get her to sleep before you lay her down or whether you just lay her down and she falls asleep. And she just answered, which was kind of cute. She says, I usually try to get her almost to sleep before I put her down. Well, she's been sleeping now for the last 20 minutes. So I think whatever
Yeah.
Grandpa did, the lullaby, singing my lullabies today, I've really warmed up my voice. Uh, I get the program of doing the bottles. I mean, playpen time. I've been on the floor with my granddaughter. We've been on a walk. In fact, down here where I'm at in Champaign, we're able to miss the raindrops, thankfully.
Nice.
Um, but Ryan, law of agency, all those things that you learned about in real estate that will never really be part of a transaction,
Hmm.
but it's good to understand the basics, the platform of how real estate came to be this industry, which has changed because now you're getting to take part in something that I didn't through my licensing, and that was for the longest time we just assumed, well, back in the day it was sub agency, meaning that everybody
Hmm.
worked for the listing agent or the listing broker, and then it became buyer's agency somewhere around 1994, and then people didn't really understand, okay, now you've got two sides of the transaction, a buyer's agent and a listing agent or a seller's agent.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, as I always thought, the public wasn't going to put up with this because you could sense that there was a lot of intermingling of files, of data, of information, and who really was representing the seller if the seller was still holding commission out to the buyer. So you learned all about that too.
Yep, a whole lot of that. There's a lot of information. Probably some of it I'll never remember again unless I go through a book. But and there's some math that we'll probably never use as an agent that the mortgage side will use and banks. So it's just you get a good grasp of what the industry is and what's expected and what's required in Illinois. So
Well, and it's not just Illinois because
yep,
obviously there is states where your license, if you're in Illinois, they do cooperate with other states. But
yeah,
if you go to another state, many real estate brokers are licensed in multiple states.
hmm
What is that called? Not uh,
reciprocity. You can usually
reciprocity.
just
Thank you.
take the state portion that where you
Yeah,
want to be, and then you're good.
thank you.
Yeah,
I was going to say recidivism, but that's kind of like, oh, that's prison. That's right.
yeah.
That's getting out of prison and coming back in. All right. Well, Ryan, obviously it was good. It's good to have you back. A lot of craziness has gone on. Tuesday's show, we talked about JB at length. I love Tom DeVore's Facebook Live where he talked about the fact that we've got to do what JB's doing here in Illinois. You know, his plan. Now, granted, what Tom didn't explain, and I think Tom understands this, that JB's really trying to position himself to be the nominee for the Democrat Party, presidential nominee. And so he's not only the governor of Illinois, but he's also out. Uh, you know
Yeah.
what's the term we? It's a it's a pep rally because when it comes from
Gallivanting
JB,
around with the elites in New Hampshire. Yeah.
well, but I mean, it's a pep rally because nobody's taking the man serious. I mean, unfortunately, there are a few crazies. I mean, beyond the TDS and the other people who already lost their mind in the Democrat Party, the radical left. He's going to incite someone to do something that I know that person probably won't regret because when you've lost your mind, you've lost your mind.
Hmm.
And so, we covered that on Tuesday. Here we are. The 100 days have passed. We're hitting on all cylinders. You know, I don't know if you had an opportunity to watch the cabinet meeting, which, oh, by the way, I did a little research that Joe Biden almost went a full year without having a cabinet meeting.
Yeah. And didn't Jill sit on one of them too?
That was the one.
Yeah.
That was the one in September 6th of 2024. Before that, it was October 2nd of 2023. That was the last cabinet meeting before, and that was the one that Jill sat in because if you think about it, on September 6th, Joe Biden wasn't the candidate any longer
Hmm.
for the Democrats. He was that ship sailed, right? They moved him along. So yeah, they put Jill in there, and I don't know what the rationale. I'd like to know a lot more about what happened in that last year of the Biden administration because we know unequivocally Joe Biden wasn't running the ship.
No. And there are protocols in place that if you cannot um, make a cabinet meeting, who is supposed to reside over that cabinet meeting? It's supposed to be probably the vice president or third in line in those cabinet meetings. It's not supposed to be the first lady. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out from that. But 100 days in, I think it's ceremonial. I personally think that it's kind of like an unofficial check mark of what a president does or doesn't do. It's unofficial, but I've got a video of Chuck Schumer. If Mrs. Producer is still working the keyboard, I can display what the Democrats' message was on his first 100 days. It was very negative. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, even the Indian congressman from Michigan have all stated either impeachment or that it's the worst 100 days in office. And here is Chucky highlighting that fact, which we know is not true.
Americans are noticing. The polls this week show Trump has the lowest 100-day approval rating since they started polling 80 years ago, the lowest. Even worse, 72% of Americans think it's likely that Trump's handling of the economy will walk us directly into a recession. And people who hate what Trump is proposing. Yes.
There's a poll out today that has your approval ratings lower than any other congressional leader at 17%. Are you concerned that you may be a liability for your party?
Polls come and go. Our party is united. We're on our front foot. We're stepping forward, going after Trump, and having real success. Yes.
So, on one hand, he says that it's the worst polling President Trump's first 100 days. And in the other hand, he says that polls come and go. So we're not concerned with our own shattered floor numbers of polling. He's not concerned with the Democrats polling at 29% or lower. He's concerned that President Trump has had his worst 100-day ever, considering that the border is at its lowest apprehension rate in over the last 4 years. That alone would be a victory in the first 100 days. When you've lit a fire to the administration that they did the first 4 years last, it's going to take more than 100 days to fix it. He's got the right people in place. I know today he just found out that he made a switcheroo with Mike Waltz. He made him UN ambassador instead of staying in the national security role. That would have been something that Trump wouldn't have done his first term. If somebody was fired or resigned, he would have let them get thrown to the wolves. But he quickly maneuvered, and he let Mike Waltz be the ambassador instead of letting him get raked over the coals by Democrats. Now, the left is going to sit here and claim that this is a victory and that they got one more, keep more firings coming. It's not a firing, it's just a maneuvering. They know it was a bad PR stunt, and Mike probably was out of his league in the national security role. So the first 100 days, whether you think he did a great thing or he did terrible, it's not really a good measure of how the president's doing, because he's not the only one in the works of proposing and pushing his agenda. It takes a multifaceted approach to fix what the Democrats crushed the last 4 years.
Exactly. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Cassidy called me to let me know that she was running behind on getting back here. And of course, what we learned out in Denver, Colorado, when we did the remote from my phone out there, is that I get a phone call, Ryan, that knocks me out of the studio.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you that I won't get additional phone calls, but you hit upon it. I didn't realize that because I've been busy today that was the breaking news that Mike Waltz was maneuvered or positioned because
he signed, and instead of letting him hang out there to be raked and ridiculed, he quickly maneuvered him to a different role. So,
which was an empty, vacated role, or a role that was originally targeted. The person originally that was going to take that position as the UN ambassador was Elise Stefanovich, right?
Yeah, and they didn't want her leaving her House
Congress.
seat. Yeah,
because they didn't want that to be. And like I said, this is interesting because I think it hits upon it. You got to realize there are a lot of people. I walked around today with my granddaughter and I realized this. There are a lot of people that were paid a lot of money not to do anything, to become dependent upon a welfare system. We've gained dependency in our culture. People want to basically receive a lot of money for doing nothing.
Yeah.
In fact, as Doge digs in and continues to uncover, one of the things that has happened in the first 100 days that would have never, ever happened. And I had a video where oh gosh, I still drew a blank, but it was my Stephen Miller. Thank you. I knew it'd come around. Stephen Miller said the most incredible president ever, because this stuff would have never even seen the light of day. The Bushes didn't want it. The Clintons didn't want it. Obama didn't want it. Uh, Heck, I would go as far as saying there hasn't been a president in the history of the United States of America that wanted to dig deep and create the transparency for the people of this country to the level that Trump is doing. And that's what has them so clearly out of their minds.
Mhm.
Because
I've
now
I've got the video if you want to see it.
No, go ahead. Hit
Yep. So Stephen Miller, I think this is a good take here. Let's see.
Vigilant Fox put it up. It was a good one.
Yep.
Oh, there
I
you go.
just went right to your page, so we're good.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah.
This president has literally saved America, and I could not be prouder. I could not be prouder, as I know Caroline feels the same way, to come every single day to this building where we have a leader sitting in office whose first, last, and every thought is the safety, prosperity, security, and sovereignty of the citizens. That's an important word, people. Citizens of this republic. Thank you all.
Man.
Thank you.
That's powerful. That is powerful. I mean, and that's what I said about JB. Can you imagine JB Pritzker trying to handle the questioning that comes at Trump? I mean, rapid fire, they're constantly trying to see if they can get him to say something or do something. That says it all. Stephen Miller says it all. There has been no other person to take on this diabolical plan to basically shut down the United States of America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the bench is deep on the right. We talk about this all the time, building the bench. Whether it's DeSantis or Vance up and coming or Ramaswamy, there's a deeper bench, but nobody is Trump.
Yeah.
And there will never be another Donald Trump. Even if his kids decide to run someday, there is nobody that can take the wrecking ball to the swamp and DC like Trump can.
Well, and I get it. There, what the left is trying to bank on, besides what they've always do, kill, steal, and destroy, deceive. Basically, they're very good at gaslighting. They mastered it. They created it. And of course, now we've gotten a little better at gaslighting. So especially Trump does a lot of gaslighting to those people, or trolling them. But one of the things is that, and we'll continue to see, is they don't have a plan other than the plan that they've already shown us,
mm-hmm.
which was to open the borders, register, and create citizens out of every illegal immigrant they could in order to shift the demographic destiny is what they call it, or the replacement theory, whatever you want to term it. It was all about winning those swing states permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And basically after that, they didn't have anything else. I mean, they can't run on, well, first and foremost, who would they put up there to create the deals that Trump is? When you talk about money coming back, not only through Doge and uncovering the fraud, waste, and abuse, but look at the companies that are now coming back and investing in America, and knowing that for years, decades, America was always on the short end of the stick. We were always on the negative side of any trade deal that we had,
Mm-hmm.
because we were giving away more than we were having returned to us. And now we see that happening. And of course, that has them out of their minds because they love the globalist economy.
Yes.
They love to rub elbows with G. They love to rub elbows with Zelensky.
Mm-hmm.
They love to rub elbows with Putin. They just don't admit it out loud, but
yeah,
spend a lot
It's
of
one
time.
big money laundering scheme they have, right? They built that into the USAID. They funneled money through these secret organizations and then ran it back through a spider web of organizations so that they couldn't be traced very well. And I'm actually working on a story coming up with an NGO involving an Illinois organization too. So that's coming soon. It's actually an event sponsored by Land of Lincoln Legal. Remember that name change event that's coming up?
Yep.
That's a huge story that I'm working on. So
Read that.
there is. I'm still trying to figure out if there's some shady business going on beyond what they're offering. I haven't been able to connect those dots yet, but stay tuned. That's coming.
Well, keep digging, because once again, this is what it's going to take. But not only that, um, you know, we all have to realize that there is no time frame. I believe Trump when he says that things are going to look a lot different when you go into the third quarter of this year, and especially coming out of this year. You know, for the love of all things good, what did you think? How long was it going to take? It sure wasn't going to happen in 100 days or
Right.
30, 60, 90 days. It's interesting that now you're embarking on a career path that's how it's set up, right?
Right.
You know, 30, 60, 90 days, that's residential real estate.
Mm-hmm.
You get into commercial deals, especially large commercial deals, and you have to do, you know, a letter of intent, LOI, and you have to go through phase one and phase two environmentals. Those projects can be years before they come to fruition. In fact, banks don't loan, which I find it interesting with the lawsuit against Trump, that you know they were going after because on Mar-a-Lago, the value of Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
It takes years to compile a commercial real estate transaction. And here you talk about a commercial real estate transaction or even a residential real estate transaction. You know, Trump is the master of the art of the deal. And he will get it done. It won't be years. I'm confident in that. I think he'll get it done relatively quickly, in spite of the Democrats trying to Trump-proof his administration, Trump 2.0. Well, actually, Trump 3.0. We can't forget that Trump was the duly elected president of 2020, and we'll get to the bottom of that soon. But I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. And it's funny, the screechers are like, you know, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. He's taking Medicaid, he's taking Social Security. Look at the stock market, it's collapsed. You know, Scott Bessent said, relatively speaking, over the course of the history of the New York Stock Exchange, we've had many instances like we had for those, what, 10 days of April. And look, the April just ended yesterday, and we ended up pretty much back where we started from. And somebody tried challenging me last night. Oh, we're not back up to 42,000. Well, no, just because you lost market position, that wasn't all equity that was in the market.
Right.
That's
These
a
are the
manipulative
same
number.
people that when Trump was president the first time and he was having success in the stock market and everything was sky high, they told him the stock market doesn't make the presidential measurements. You know, that's, you don't measure success in stock market success. Okay, then what do you call it now? You blame him when it goes down a little bit? Okay.
This same person was trying to tell me, he said, under Biden, the stock market, well, okay, we understand that Biden was able to keep the stock market at a high level. Why? Because we had plenty of countries investing in the market, like China, who were falsely manipulating it, who had a vested interest. Now, the reason the stock market dropped a little bit because there's a new sheriff in town. You know, little did we know. We didn't really, to close the border or to get the economy back on track, we didn't need anything but a new president. And that's what they're finding out. And that's what they're upset about. It has nothing to do with the economic times. It has nothing to do with transgenderism.
Right.
It has nothing to do with racism. It has nothing to do with whether he's a Nazi or not. It has nothing to do with anything they say. What it has 100% to do with is, for whatever reason, and it's almost biblical, because I've never seen a hate for a person like the left hates Trump.
Yeah. I don't think that it would even be as bad for DeSantis or even JD Vance, relatively new to the stage. It is specifically Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they'll find their new way of trying to dig in the other two or whoever's in the lead next, but it really is amazing how much hate is generated from the left for one person who really is a sitting duck at this point, a lame duck president. He doesn't have any reelection hopes. So, I mean, besides them screeching about him rearranging it so he can have a third term, but there's nothing that they can do to really manipulate or change anything.
Which I think makes it even more. I think that's what makes it even worse for them.
Mm-hmm.
And the hate continues to become greater, is because they know that it isn't another term that he really seeks.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, if he was just a regular lame duck, then it's all posturing by the party politics.
Yep.
Trump is a change agent, not only for the Democrat part or the Republican Party, but for the Democrat Party.
Yes.
He's changing the bureaucratic outlook. He's changing government to be what it's supposed to be under the Constitution of the United States.
Yes.
Limited government, small, limited government. And it's got those people just freaking out. I mean, one of the pieces of legislation right now is, which I think will pass and be signed into law, is the insider trading. And I'm going to call it what it is. When Congress can legislate and then also turn around and put money into the stock market on things they're legislating,
right?
There's a reason why they leave or never leave Washington, multi-millionaires.
Yeah.
Because they're allowed to basically, you talk about legalized stealing, they know before the markets even open up where they should position their money so that they can get the greatest return. That's got to stop.
Right. On a modest salary, give and take the raises every, cycle, 174,000 to 180,000. What is the wealth generated from Nancy Pelosi when she's worth 200 and some odd million? How does that happen on a salary that size over the course of 50 years?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No.
It's insane.
I'm starting to find myself here down in Champaign at my daughter's house in the DPB show. I was kind of concerned about it because, Ryan, as I told you, Grandpa DPB is not used to going at the pace of a 6-month-old. Isn't that fascinating? But it was good to slow down today because ultimately that's the only way that we will recover as people of the United States of America, is we've got to slow down in order to speed up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Trump is doing. When people start questioning whether we're going down the right path, I love it. They would say, gosh, he's gotten in, he's caused chaos. And no, what he has done, he's started to disassemble, re-engineer things, starting to strip away some of the layers and layers of bureaucracy, which once again, that's how they survive. That's how they live. So slowing down to go fast or to speed up is the key to not only your personal life, but the life of this country. We've got to know, and we haven't for a very long time, where things are at. And it saddens me to see low-income people, as I drive and meander around from here to there, who are really struggling to pay rent, to afford anything, knowing that the government has been stealing the whole time from the very people that they proclaim that they're helping.
Yep.
That's sickening. That's a sickness.
I've always thought about it this way. In a country this size and this resource abundant, there really shouldn't be any homelessness whatsoever. with the amount of jobs
Yeah.
and resources and food available and housing. I mean, I know there's a housing crisis or a housing shortage. You know what? You know, that's the real estate bubble that happens every, so often. But with all that considered, there really shouldn't be any homelessness. You look at now, people are going to come after me. Like, well, what about the unfortunate situation? People get fired, or they whatever. Okay, then you find another job.
Well, but there's also programs. If we really had detailed programs of taking care of catastrophic loss of
Yeah,
jobs or disability or anything, there should be safety nets for
right.
people. But Charlie Kirk brought something up interesting, and I know this has been happening. You got to realize BlackRock was not a friend when they were
Mhm.
out there with China buying up residential developments and
Yeah.
residential housing. Why
Mhm.
were they doing that? That was intentional. Once again, it was also planned, right?
Mhm.
They were looking for housing for the 20 million plus illegal immigrants that Joe Biden allowed to come into this country. Most of them, once again, I believe are good-hearted people who just wanted a life different than where they were living,
Right.
but yet they weren't living bad where they were. I mean, was it was it it wasn't the United States of America, right?
Right.
They didn't have the earning potential. They sure weren't given luxury hotels and gift cards and Medicaid and hospital visits and vehicles and scooters and everything else and iPhones, but they need to go home because their country needs to be great
Yes.
again. Our country needs to be great again. And bottom line is when BlackRock and other companies were participating in this craziness of the real estate market, you're right. No one should in this world should be homeless.
Yeah. With the
No
amount of
one.
resources that are available to, the nonprofit organizations that help and give shelter, or even the local food pantries that can get you some food, or places you can stay, everybody has some resemblance of family, friends, whatever. They can sleep on a couch, until they can get back on their feet. There are places you can stay and places you can work. You should not be below that much pride that you can't go clean toilets until you get back on your feet.
Well, you bring up something. Pastor Timothy James Farrell from the Tabernacle, and if you're available on Sundays at 10 a.m. and you're in the Central Illinois area, we are a regional church, and we have people drive as far as 40 minutes to get to church. But Timothy James Farrell says it best. Everybody has a home. Everybody was born in a hospital, in a geographic location. Everybody has a family. If we would spend more of the money rather than pilfering and stealing and wasting it, and try to continue to build the family unit and to be that shining light on a hill, if we truly tried to make families great again, make families healthy again, if we spent our resources on that, I think the amount of homelessness would go away. The amount of mental illness would go away. Obviously, um, we've got a big mental health crisis in this country. And I think a lot of that's created by the people, the practitioners in the mental health industry. Because Lord knows you don't want everybody to be mentally fit, because then what do you do for a job? A lot of this is predicated on people need people to be recovering from something, whether it's homelessness, alcohol addiction, because it gives them a place to work. Now, we need those people, obviously, because we've got a lot of problems, but we need to start reallocating the money to making families great again. And I think that Trump's going to continue that theme of doing that. Making America great again is making families great again.
Yeah. On that, if I don't know if you've I don't know if you've seen, Tucker had a sit down 2 hours with Matt Walsh, and I got a clip of that exact topic that you were just talking about, the demonic push to tear apart the nuclear family.
Yeah.
So if Mrs. Producer want to throw that on a screen, I will share that up.
There you go.
So here's about, I don't know how long he goes with it, but here's the start of what we were just talking about.
Cry. It's ridiculous. It's shameful.
But it's interesting that you said at the outset we've been told the opposite, and it's almost like, well, it's not almost like, it is, that all the ingredients in a successful marriage and family, and in fact in a successful life, have been systematically targeted by the people in charge and their proxies for destruction. So like everything you need to know to have a successful life has been undermined. Like, no, you definitely cry in front of your wife. Like, show your feelings. No, she should go get a higher paying job than you. Like, you should do more of the housework. Like, you need to be the woman actually in the relationship. No, it's totally fine to spend all Saturday playing video games while getting high or whatever. Like, we're getting not just like 3 degrees off good advice, but we're getting 180 degrees opposite advice. It's like our society, it's not like our society has been targeted intentionally for destruction. And I'm wondering why. Where does that come from? If you read The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, which came out, I think, in the early 60s, over 50 years ago, that book is like a recipe for destroying a society. And yet it was promoted. That's sort of the root of modern feminism. What is that? Is it spiritual? Are these like spiritual forces working to destroy the West? Are they, what, do you have any clue? It's so comprehensive.
Yeah.
Everything you said is the opposite of what your kids are taught in school.
It's certainly a spiritual attack. This all feels demonic because it is, in my opinion. It's also, it's all an effort, I think, to destroy the family, to upend the fundamental societal institution, which is the family. Because all of the, nefarious forces that want to control us, want to control what we do, control what we think, control what our children think. The family is an enemy to them. The family is the one thing standing in the way.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good little snippet to share.
When was that? Was that just recent? Matt Walsh was on Tucker?
Yes, you can find it on Tucker's X account, that video.
Okay.
I watched it the other day. It was pretty good. It was really good.
I need to go watch it because, this is what I'm fascinated about. This is why we encourage you, not Ryan, not Mrs. Producer, but you, those who come and listen to the content here at the DPB show, whether that be YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, or X. We're having the same conversations that Tucker and Matt Walsh and Vince Colonnese. And I tuned into Vince the other day because he was rallying around Pritzker. He was giving him a big baby send-off. But, as I told Mrs. Producer the other day, I really do miss Dan Bongino. Man, I mean, what an impact he had.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine the impact he is having right now inside of the federal government as the deputy director of the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Because if he had that kind of impact on the outside, I can only imagine that we're going to see things come really fast. But ultimately, slow down to speed up.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Bongino always forewarned us, right? Give it the 72-hour rule or the 24-hour rule. Well, in his case, in what he's probably uncovering and digging up, it needs much more time than that, which is what the show's about today. How much time we're clawing back. I mean, nobody has ever done this in the history of America, which is reverse engineer what someone came in to totally disrupt, which is the American way of life. And as Matt Walsh just so eloquently said there, they wanted to destroy the American family because they know that's the linchpin of a civilized society.
Yeah. When you don't have a healthy marriage, you don't have offspring derived from a healthy marriage or even a healthy relationship. I know there's a lot of, separation of families and things like that for various reasons, but a two-parent household, happily married and engaged in their kids' life, is one of the healthiest signs of a family. The left doesn't want that. They think that you are easier to divide and conquer and control as a society if we take the family element away. And one of the quickest way to do that is to control how much you get on welfare. Prop up the single parent household with welfare benefits and hammer the other, hammer
in
the
the
other
streets.
parent
Yeah.
for
But
child
it's-
support. That's what
yeah.
happens.
Well, it's not only disrupting the household. If your
Mhm.
kids are out on the street and they're carrying guns or they're
Yep.
participating in drug trafficking, or human trafficking. I mean, the crime that is going on in the inner city right now is it's young people who are lost.
Yes.
They don't have a family structure. They don't
Right.
have, I know that Reverend, Corey Brooks up in Chicago did the whole thing on trying to revitalize the inner city of Chicago. He slept on the roof for what? I mean, it was like a year
Mhm.
in order to try to raise the money for this community center. How many children has Pastor Corey Brooks adopted? Because he had to. He
Mhm.
saw that, what else was he going to do? I mean, and so hats off to guys like that,
Mhm.
that put their money, he was willing to sleep on the roof of storage containers, right? In inner city Chicago during the middle of winter in order to raise money
Yeah.
for a community center.
Right.
So,
We should be openly encouraging marriage at a very young age for these youth. And you've seen it, a generational push towards conservative leaning views as they get older, out of college, and they get into relationships and they get married. They've turned more conservative in their views.
yeah.
And that's the start of it. But he had a really good conversation with Matt, and it was a 2-hour look. I encourage everybody to go see it. Go to Tucker Carlson's X page and see that interview with Matt. It's a really good one. But he said something earlier: 100 days to clean up, 4 years. It's going to take probably 4 to 8 to 12 to 16 to really clean up what Biden, Obama, Susan Rice, and others destroyed. I mean, they were working at breakneck speed to bring in hundreds of millions of people. If they had Kamala Harris another 4 to 8 years, you would have seen 20 million to 50 to 60 million people coming in that should not be here. And then you would see entirely new factions of our country being overtaken. You'd see red states turn into really purple states, and the electorate. It's all about the electorate. How can they game the system by mass immigration? Now, along with illegal immigration, there is a more legal way they are doing it. And I've been talking about this for a couple of days. I've seen posts on it. I've seen videos, actually. There is a deep part of Texas and Florida that is under control and the property buying up of Muslim and Islamic faith leaders. They're building compounds in cities that are in red states, and they've already taken over Minnesota and Michigan. And you've seen them multiply like rabbits in order to gain population. But you've seen what happened in the United Kingdom. You've seen what's happening in England and other countries in Europe. They're being overridden with Islamic terrorism because they've openly let it in their front door. And then they've said, well, it's okay. We're just going to accept all religions. Well, that's what they're going to do here in America. They are going to use our own Constitution, our own First Amendment against us and say that we can't stop them from building compounds and buying old churches and buildings through legal process and then take over communities and eventually states. That's how the Democrats intend to further their power divide by using illegal immigration or the Muslim population. And Islamic faith, I'm sorry, I'll be bold. It is a destructive faith. It's one centered on death, a culture of death, and they hate America so much and the West so much that they will conquer it. And it will be a United States of Islam if we don't stop the grotesque takeover of these cities. I don't know directly what parts of Texas and Florida these are happening, but If the rest of the country, for that matter, does not wake up, we are going to see what the United Kingdom has become on a much larger scale. You talk about, family units being destroyed. You're going to see a complete religious takeover of America, and we won't even recognize what our country is and what we stand for. So I think 100 days in years past, it could be a good barometer of what a president's doing. I think the 2,000 executive orders that Trump has signed to undo the mess that Biden allowed last 4 years, you're seeing that. Now I want to see the Congress take the first 100 days and put all his executive orders into law, because next year midterms is coming up, and if we lose seats, we lose control of Congress. And if Democrats control the House and the Senate, that means Trump's agenda comes to a screeching halt, and we're basically sitting ducks until 28 with no agenda moving. And as much as the Democrats are to blame for not going on board some of these legislation, they're not the problem. Republicans have had margins like this before, and they've done nothing with it. What you need to be doing is contacting a representative and your senator and your state, if you're in a red state, and tell them, codify Trump's agenda into law immediately. Otherwise, God forbid a Democrat wins in 28 and they undo by executive order the 2,000 executive orders Trump just signed. And I think that's important for everybody to understand. And if you can't get a hold of them by first ring, keep calling. And if you can't, get to your state capital. Talk to them too. Keep ringing Washington. It's so important to not turn a blind eye. Yes, we won in November. Trump wins. It's way better than Kamala Harris's first 100 days. That for sure. But we're not done. You have to keep going, because complacency is when you lose more elections. Locally is when Democrats are taking over. You've seen Bloomington Normal and McLean County area being overrun by progressive policies. They take over when we don't fight. And I'm not talking about with sticks and stones and guns. You have to keep voting in off-year elections. You have to keep it. If you don't like the candidates that are running for office, run yourself. And aside from voting, stop spending money on places that you know will spend your money on progressive causes. Stop giving money to candidates that may not be as conservative as you. Stop voting for people who don't support your values. That's really how this gets turned around. Trump's agenda never, I don't think Illinois is ever going to turn around unless the state GOP is ever going to turn around itself. Because the state, I've had conversations before. Well, if we just had Darren Bailey in there, if we just had enter name here for Republicans in Illinois. Do you know our GOP leadership signs on more bills with Democrats than they've proposed more conservative legislation in Illinois, even as a super minority? That's also a problem. We're not going to turn Illinois around until we turn the state party around. And the way you do that is to vote into office people who are like-minded as yourself. You don't allow Democrats to be party leaders in the Republican Party. Statewide, countywide, local races, find great candidates or run yourself locally for county boards, for school board races, for state offices, and then eventually congressional seats. This is the only way it gets solved if you vote locally. The only way it's going to turn around locally and nationally. Dick Durbin's stepping down. But you know who's going to fill his seat because Republicans don't vote? Probably Lieutenant Governor Julia Stratton. Probably some other liberal progressive Democrat that we've never heard of, because Republicans can't turn out 2 to 3 million votes on a Senate seat. Ducky got 3 million votes in her seat. Chicagoland, I know there's 9 million people in the Chicagoland area. It's a lot of people compared to 3 or 4 million in the rest of the state. I get it. It sucks. The never say never attitude. But you can't even begin to fight the Democrats in Illinois if you don't fix the Republican Party, whether it be turning out locally for precinct committeemen, Get involved locally. If you're not, you don't want to knock on doors, don't want to call people, fine, then run for office. And have a coordination of group that can do it for you, but you have to get involved. And that's the only way that this whole thing turns around, is that more people get involved. You have to overwhelm the system, not by voting, not just voting, but be more active. Don't be afraid to stand up and be a voice, even if you never run for office. I didn't think I
Amen.
would be here in a million years doing what I'm doing. But if you don't stand up, the Nazi regime will find you eventually, and after everybody else has been taken, you'll be the last one. I know there's a Hank Johnson video in my mind because I heard him earlier say the dumbest thing, but it actually rings true. When you don't stand up for people that have been silenced on social media, that were large accounts that you followed, you don't stand up for the school board members that were voted out because you didn't vote, then you can't stand up for yourself when they come after you. So we all have a job to preserve our country and our state, by either voting or standing up and saying, hey, enough is enough. We're not doing this. That's how you take back and keep America, America.
Well, and that's well said. Once again, thank you, Ryan. Thanks for stepping up and taking over.
I got you.
While I was absent there. My son-in-law came home from his day job, and so that means that grandpa duty is now officially over. So
Off
I
the clock.
apologize. and my son-in-law is a good, solid human being. I mean, he was a Boy Scout and everything. And he probably doesn't see the world as you and I would, but I think he would appreciate. He came in on the conversation I was talking about Corey Brooks, Pastor Corey Brooks, and his plight to help in the inner city. But you're hitting upon, Ryan, the foundational principles of growing our culture, growing our economy, growing the great American comeback. And it does start with people getting involved. I don't know who was the country singer you were talking about that sang the song.
Oh no, I was referencing the Democrat representative Hank Johnson's rant earlier today.
Hank Johnson, not
Yeah.
Okay, I got
No,
I'm sorry.
I did
was
throw him a
calling in
bone there because he was talking
No,
about how Nazis coming for everybody, but in his own way. It was kind of
Okay.
weird.
So this wasn't Hank. This wasn't Hank.
No, it was
Williams
not Hank
Jr.
Williams.
But-
No.
Okay, but there's something to be said when people say that they don't do politics,
Right.
that they don't like to be involved. Here's the thing, and I heard this from Lieutenant Governor candidate Stephanie Trussell.
Mhm.
You might not do politics, but politics is doing you.
Yes.
It's doing you every day and twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because that's the way it's set up to be. You
Yes.
can choose not to be an active participant in the world of politics, and that's okay. But you've got to realize, well, it really isn't okay. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not okay, because too many people have decided to do that.
Mhm.
And that's where we're at. I mean, when you hear Matt Walsh talking about the breakdown of the family, there's a reason for that, because we are responsible. I'm responsible for that. Can I do more? My wife is probably going, oh my gosh, he can't do more.
Yeah.
I don't know why it just went off Bluetooth, but that's all right.
All right.
We'll deal with what we get. It's been a nice day, obviously, to recapture some territory, which makes me think of what I wanted to say today if I had an opportunity. The Democrats aren't going to concede anything.
No.
They've taken the territory, and so they're going to fight to keep it. If anything, J.B. Pritzker was right. They're not going to, they're going to fight to keep control, and they do fight, and they call for their people to fight, and we have to be up for the challenge. And now, I don't condone violence. I know it seems like the Democrats, that's all they do is promote it and condone it. But we're not this kind of people. We have a constitution, and we're going to fight with the Constitution first and foremost. We believe in peace. We believe in prosperity. We believe in a better America. And that's what we believe. We can let them believe whatever they want. We're in charge now. We have the throttle. We have the House. We have
the Senate.
We have the president.
Yeah.
Because yes, I'm sorry, the Senate, the House, and the presidency. The judicial branch has a lane, and they need to stay in it.
Yeah.
And we're going to find out that the judicial overreach that we've seen over the last 4 years, that's going to stop. It's going to stop. It's not going to it's not going to be allowed to happen, because ultimately, if we allow it to happen, then we're really not a constitutional republic.
Yeah, we're Venezuela or Brazil at that point, letting the courts rule the country.
Yeah.
Yep. We can do a whole show on that attack.
Yeah. So we're going to do more shows, obviously, because we are just getting started. As Stephen Miller said, there's nothing like what we're encountering right now. Nothing. It has never happened before, and we hope that it never has to happen again. That document, our country has withstood world wars. It has lost millions of people who have put it all on the line. They gave up their life for this country. And I don't think there's too many of us that are willing to just allow that to go by the wayside. I know there are a few, but they're the few, and they're not the many. We need to lean into the many, and we need to encourage we need to encourage all the people that we can to get involved, to be a part of it. This is something very special, and if you don't think that this is anything other than the great comeback, then you're mistaken.
I agree.
At the end of the show, Mrs. Producer, I made it back on. So, Ryan, since you haven't prayed in a while, I'm going to leave you to pray us out of the show.
All right. I'll do it.
All right. Take my hat off.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day on planet Earth. We thank you that we live in this great nation, that you have blessed us, and you have allowed us to do our part. What we could not do, you helped us do, and now it is upon us to hold up our end. So we need you every day in this fight as we take on what it is to be a rabid indifference to you. And just give us the strength and the wisdom and the ability to overcome everything with you. I'm grateful for every day that I am here and I can speak my voice. We know in other parts of the world, even if you say your name, you could be persecuted. So we all need to take a second and be more grateful and humble that we live in the greatest nation on the earth. And it's because God's grace and mercy that we do. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Well said, my friend. It's good to have you back, Ryan. Obviously, we will be back Tuesday. Lord knows, and only God knows where things are going to go from here. But as long as we stay on his side of issues, the best is yet to come. Hey, Ryan, I love him. I love everyone out there. I don't do the hate thing. I leave that up to the crazies on the left. I know Ryan. Ryan, do you love him?
Oh yeah, I do.
But Jesus loves you more. We will see you back here 4 to 5 Tuesdays and Thursdays. Rumble, YouTube, X, and Facebook. Go out, like, subscribe. We couldn't do it without you guys. Always appreciate you being here, and we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. Farewell.